Poco F3 is undoubtedly one of the best Android flagship killers of 2021. It is a performance beast. But how good is the camera on this phone? To get the best comparison, we paired it up with Redmi Note 10 that we've already reviewed in this channel. Same camera sensor, same Android 11, MIUI 12.5 from the same company, and let's know, would there be a very big surprise? Okay, welcome back. Before we start shooting all kinds of videos and photos from these phones, let us have a quick look at the specs. They share a lot of things in common. The same 48 megapixel main camera, the same 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, but unfortunately there is no depth sensor for the Poco F3. Maybe they compensated that with giving it 5 megapixel macro sensor instead of 2 that is in the Redmi Note 10. You can read the detailed camera hardware information here. You can pause and check that as we go into selfie test. Now, the Poco F3 has 20 megapixel, while that of the Redmi Note 10 has 13 megapixel. I'm going to use a portrait mode here so much because I want to test whether there is any advantage of the depth sensor. Now, if you haven't subscribed, I think this is a good time to click on that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell icon, because the winner between these two will get a Gcam versus stock video, and you want to get that when it comes out. Now to the main camera, we'll start indoors, and when we take the picture in the portrait mode, you will see that the Poco, both of them look good, but when you zoom in, you will now start seeing that lack of depth sensor comes to play when it has to do with foreground, background, and edge detection in portrait mode. The Redmi Note 10 depth sensor comes into play and nailed it. So let's go outdoors now. Now, I'm gonna still continue with the portrait mode, and the Redmi Note 10 continues to do well in the foreground, background separation and the edge detection. On the Poco, the software is not doing well. Maybe here is where we might need to bring in Gcam, but you have to subscribe to see that video. The main camera without portrait, they just look alike, they are just similar. There's nothing to pick out of the two under good lighting, but when it comes to the Pro mode, look at how quick the Poco F3 camera opens. I mean, the processor here plays a very, very good advantage in the Pro mode. I actually set both of them to be the same in the ISO, shutter speed and all that. But that on the Redmi Note 10 was like 3 times worse, especially the ISO. So I had no choice than to leave all of them on auto and start shooting the 48 megapixel Pro mode. And this is the outcome. The processing power here from the Poco F3 plays a lot of role. It was able to process the 48 megapixel mode, and the JPEG also was well processed. But that of the Redmi Note 10 looks like a raw picture, but you'll be surprised, it's a JPEG picture, not raw. 20 MB was the image file size for the JPEG picture on the 48 megapixel mode for both phones. So there is no RAW here, both of them are JPEG image, and you can see the difference here with you can even see if you zoom in, there is more details on that of the Poco for the JPEG processed here than that of the Redmi Note 10. So let's move to the macro. Now, I think we need to start a new campaign to end all the 2 megapixel macro, because it can't even zoom in, it can't even go close. Look at the 5 megapixel macro on the Poco F3. It could go in close and it could just focus on very closely to object. Now, this same thing repeated even in the video. You can't see the ants in that of the Redmi Note 10, but you can see them clearly in that of the Poco. I think Android OEM, please do something about using 2 megapixel macro camera. It's not good. Enough of macro, let's move straight to 4K videos. Both phones can shoot 4K at 30 FPS. It's a shame that the Poco F3 with the flagship processor can shoot 4K at 60 FPS, but it has electronic image stabilization on 4K videos while the Redmi Note 10 doesn't have. And that alone would just give you the choice of this segment. It wins straight out. Even the video processing and color output is still better on the Poco F3 here than the Redmi Note 10. But you can buy a Redmi Note 10 for half price of the Poco F3. So you have to make do with that. So this is just a gentle shoot. We're going to go to the next one and then shoot a more active shooting and see how both of them will fare. So we're back to 4K here right now. We're going to make it a little bit faster, run around. You can see the stabilization is still on the Poco F3 and that of Redmi Note 10 is shaky. Okay, let's step it down a bit to 1080p video recording where both phones have electronic image stabilization, and let's see how they fare. Both phones still struggle with HDR on video recording, once the camera is on the sky, but in 1080p the stabilization wasn't all that great on Redmi Note 10. Now it's time to do the audio test. I want you to be the judge.
So we're trying to test the audio on this. This is very, very, very noisy. And right behind this camera, there is a big generator making noise. So let's check out. Now I'm going to turn on the audio for Poco F3. How is the audio? How is it going on the Poco F3? I want you to know, is the microphone quality, the noise reduction is quite very, very noisy. Later we're going to try the audio zoom on this. So now let's check out the voice on the real Redmi Note 10. So how is the voice? How is the background noise? Yeah, it's very, very noisy. And then we want to know how it goes.
Now let's test the audio zoom.
So I'm now testing the audio zoom right now. This is the Poco with audio zoom turned on. Does it make actually any difference, or just the feature that is there? I want to know. And then now I'm talking with the Redmi Note 10 without the audio zoom. Does it make anything better than the Poco? Does that a hardware or software feature? So I want you to be the judge of this. It's very, very noisy. The air is blowing, and this is a good time to test the quality of the microphone from the camera.
Let's wrap it up with the ultra wide cameras. Both of them can record at 1080p max, and there is electronic image stabilization for both of them, and there is not much to pick from the two of the cameras. So that leaves us with my conclusion and verdict of who is the winner between the two. So let's get to that. So my verdict: camera sensor with better processor will give better picture, because most of the work that go on smartphone is post-processing, and software and processors have a lot to do. For the Poco, not having the depth sensor is missed, especially MIUI, because the software is not all that as good as Google's Gcam. So Poco is the winner, and I cannot wait to see how Gcam and MIUI camera will fare. Until I see you in that next video, peace.
Subscribe. I'll see you.